What's going on, everybody? GoodMicWork Commentaries back at you with episode 510. Back to my normal way of doing things this week on the YouTube channel. I changed things up and did a very rare on-camera episode last week that was mainly just a test, just to see how I liked it and what the feedback was like. But I'm back to normal this week here on the channel, and even though there's not a whole lot to talk about this week, I still felt like there was more than enough to do a full podcast episode. So as far as what you're going to hear in this episode, I'm going to very briefly go through Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live, touch on the main key points of the shows, talk about the memorable stuff, and then we'll move on to talk about SummerSlam and more speculation there, and I'll get into some other wrestling news as well. Very disappointing news on Aleister Black. We had Keith Lee debuting in NXT, some news on the All In pay-per-view in September, the Mae Young Classic and the G1 Climax, and maybe a few other things as well. So that's what you can expect here in episode 510. Before we get into that stuff, just wanted to let you guys know a couple of things and give you some programming notes. Number one is that sometime between now and SummerSlam, I plan on doing a live Q&A on the YouTube channel. Now, this is going to be a SummerSlam only Q&A. I just want to keep the questions SummerSlam related. And if you would like to participate in this, you can send all of your questions over to goodmicwork@gmail.com. Or if you participate in the live stream, you can ask your questions right there in the chat. Unfortunately, as of the recording of this episode, I don't know which night I'm doing that on. So right now, it's about as important as ever to follow me over on Twitter at GoodMicWork. As soon as I know what day I will be available, or what evening, I should say, I will be available next week before SummerSlam, I'll let you guys know over there on Twitter. So make sure you give me a follow and stay tuned. I was hoping I would already know the date of that when I recorded this, but my schedule is so all over the place at work, I'm really not going to know until this weekend what my schedule is going to look like next week. Also, speaking of SummerSlam, as far as the weekend goes, unfortunately, I will not be here on Saturday to watch TakeOver. I have got to work a very long day. I seriously doubt I will even be able to get up here and give you guys any sort of a review on it. I will be getting home very late on Saturday night prior to SummerSlam, which means I'll have to watch the entire pay-per-view and then record something on it all before the next day. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to pull that off. So as of right now, I'm not scheduled to be home to do any sort of a YouTube type of video regarding TakeOver. However, on Sunday for SummerSlam, I'm off the whole day. I think I'm going to do something different for this pay-per-view just to try it out, just to see how I like it, because I think it could be a good opportunity for me to get some more viewership and just have a good time. And that is, I think I'm going to stream the entire SummerSlam pay-per-view, stream my reaction to it, just like I do on Monday nights for Raw. I think I'm going to do the entire pay-per-view. However, I'm going to do things a little bit different this time. Might even play with some different camera angles. I'll try to make the stream look a little bit different than your typical Monday Night Raw watch-alongs that I do. Try to change things up a bit, maybe make it a little bit fun, maybe do some contests, or I don't know. I'll try to come up with something, but I think I want to give that a shot for this pay-per-view. Normally, a pay-per-view of this magnitude, I want to give it my undivided attention, for WrestleManias and stuff, and when we have Undertaker retirement matches and shit. I wouldn't want to be up here on YouTube. I would want to be solely focused on that. But even though I think that the SummerSlam card has the potential to be good, I also think it has the potential to suck. And right now, the overall opinion of the SummerSlam card is not very positive. Even though we've got some good matches on there, like Daniel Bryan and Miz and Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, there's really not a good feeling amongst the wrestling community that this is going to be a good pay-per-view. So maybe this is a good one for me just to play around with and do a long live stream. So on Sunday, on SummerSlam Sunday, if you would like to join me over on YouTube, you can pull me up and watch along with me the SummerSlam 2018 pay-per-view. So that's the plan as of right now. It's going to be a long day, and it's going to be a lot of streaming hours, because I'm sure as soon as SummerSlam goes off the air, I will remain on YouTube to discuss it. And I plan on eating my Wheaties that day and drinking a couple of 5-hour energies, and I should be good to go. So that is my current plan for SummerSlam. Wanted to change things up a little bit this year. We'll see how much fun we can have, and then in September, I'll go back to my normal way of just doing post pay-per-view review streams. So that's the plan right now for SummerSlam. We also, most of you guys know, just surpassed a couple of weeks ago 20,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We're almost at 21,000 now. We'll probably get there in just a couple of days. So please, if you have not yet subscribed, please do. And make sure you click that little notifications bell. That's a big deal right now in YouTube. YouTube's been changing a lot in the last couple of years, and a lot of YouTubers have had suffering views and diminishing, subscribers and things like that. So it's very important to click that little bell. I know know most of you who are loyal to this channel have already done that, but if you're new, please give that a click and give this video a like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm sorry for doing all these plugs. It's very rare that I do this on podcasts, but I do like to do it every few episodes just to remind you guys. So please hook me up with all those goodies and I would appreciate it. And the next milestone that I'm kind of eyeballing for the channel is 25,000. I think we can get there sooner rather than later, especially right now that it's Summerslam time. So if you guys can really help me out by sharing my stuff, tell your friends about me, and see if we can get these subscribers climbing as high as they can go. And by the time we're on the other side of SummerSlam and heading into the new year here, I would definitely like to be up around that 25,000 subscriber mark. Also, as it pertains to last week's episode, I kind of enjoyed doing the on-camera version of it. Now, that was only a test. I do understand that there are some visual problems with it. I'm only using a webcam. It's a decent webcam. It's a 1080p, but I had very poor lighting. As a matter of fact, when I record my podcasts, I actually record them in the dark, or not in the dark, but with very dim lights. So when a lot of times when I do my live streams, I keep the lights down just because it's more comfortable for me. But I know it doesn't really translate that well on camera. So if I do any future on-camera episodes or on-camera podcasts, I'll use a much better camera. As a matter of fact, I'll probably use the brand new iPhone that I just got myself. For the longest time, can you believe this? I had only had 16 gigs on my iPhone. I think the one I had that I just got rid of was either the 6S or the 7, but it had horrible storage. I mean, I had hardly no space on that thing at all, so I upgraded to one of the new ones, and it's a Plus, and it's the big, giant fucking screen, and it's got gigs out the ass, so I've got plenty of room on there to record video, and I might, from now on, record the video version of on-camera podcasts with that. So I think the next time you see one of those, the video quality will be much, much better. I know my overlays are sharp. It's the video that I got to work on. So if I'm going to do more of those, I want to make sure I present to you guys some high quality material and content. So there you go. Thank you for sitting through that first 5 minutes of plugs and bullshit. I appreciate it. Some asshole has probably already put down in the comments when I finally start talking about wrestling news, so you can thank that douchebag in the comments below for hooking you up with the timestamp. Let's get started with Monday Night Raw first and just kind of blow through the show. Like I said, Raw for the last, I don't know how long, has been really bad. I mean, most of us have been pretty much shitting on this show every week. One of the big reasons I'm up here doing live Raw watch-alongs on Mondays is because it just makes it easier to hang out with all of you guys and watch what normally is a pretty crappy show. And this week was not much better. Wasn't a terrible Raw, wasn't the worst one we've ever seen or anything like that. But again, we just found ourselves rolling our eyes through, 75% of this show. And that's becoming the norm week in and week out in WWE. And it's getting extremely frustrating. And you guys tell me, when was the last time, what was the date that there was a Monday Night Raw that we all collectively said, okay, that was a great show? I mean, it has to be a few months at least. I don't even remember the last time I really enjoyed a Raw and Raw was winning, thumbs up polls all over Twitter and shit. When was the last time that happened? It's been a while. So I'm not going to go in order of Monday Night Raw. I'm going to bounce around, talk about the main points. And I just mentioned Paul Heyman a minute ago. And wow, his interview on Monday Night Raw, to me, was the highlight of the show. I really wasn't looking that much forward to it. We saw what happened last week when Brock was on Raw, acting like an asshole, reading backwoodsman magazines, backstage, refusing to appear on the show, flying all that way down to Miami just to sit on his ass and read magazines. And then finally, when he comes out to the ring after already abusing Paul Heyman a little bit in the backstage area, he's out there in the ring F5ing Kurt Angle and then grabs Paul Heyman by the face and threatens him and assaults him. And it is completely fucked up Paul Heyman. And he had an interview on Monday Night Raw that was in a studio setting with Renee Young. And Paul Heyman, let me tell you, you guys saw it. He sold this shit as if a doctor had just told him that he had 2 weeks to live. That's the emotion. That's where he took himself to get through this interview. I mean, he was visibly crying. It didn't look like fake bullshit crying. It looked like he was actually crying. It looked like this actually happened to him. And it's why Paul Heyman is so great. I mean, they're setting up here either the split between Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, or they're setting up the most brilliant swerve of all time, because Paul Heyman doing this good of a job and being this convincing if it turns out that it's all a ruse, just to sucker in Roman Reigns or sucker in the fans or sucker in somebody, and then Paul Heyman and Brock share a big embrace and a big laugh at everybody's expense, that's very possible. But it could also be the beginning of what seems like is an inevitable split between the two. Even Renee Young in the interview pointed out to Paul Heyman, she asked him point blank, if Brock Lesnar was not around, is there anybody on the WWE roster that he could see being a future client? And Heyman didn't even want to answer that. So they're teasing it a little bit. They're teasing a split. And the fact that Brock Lesnar, we know, is going to return to the UFC. And Paul Heyman might not be leaving WWE. He might still be under a contract or whatever. They might want to keep him around. And if Brock's going to leave and go do UFC, keeping him around, they can put him with somebody else. Now, I don't know why you necessarily need to split the two, because we've seen this before. Brock Lesnar has gone off and done other things in the past, and Paul Heyman kept himself busy with CM Punk and Ryback and Cesaro and a few others that failed, as we know. But it's not like Paul Heyman can't advocate for somebody else while still representing Brock at the same time. So it just adds one of very many layers and dimensions to this main event. I know a lot of people are upset about the main event. I understand your complaints completely. There's a lot of problems with the Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar match, but I've said this in the past 4 or 5 episodes straight now, that even though I understand all of that, I'm at least happy that the main event, or Brock versus Roman, the match, has more outcomes this time. I thought WrestleMania felt very predictable, even though it turned out not to be. I thought the Greatest Royal Rumble was very predictable, even though it turned out not to be. But this match, I feel, is unpredictable, so my luck, it's going to turn out to be predictable as shit. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think the Heyman twist here and the whole thing with Brock Lesnar, we don't know what's going to happen at SummerSlam. I mean, what's going to happen next week? Is Brock going to appear on the go-home show? Is he going to have some sort of a reconciliation with Heyman? What does Heyman do at SummerSlam? Does he accompany Brock Lesnar to the ring or not? Or do the two of them not speak at all until SummerSlam, and then Heyman comes out with Brock by his side and then screws him or turns on him or whatever? And hopefully next week on Raw we'll have something interesting happen on the go-home show. I don't know. I have not looked up to see if Brock is booked for the show or not. I don't think that he is. But it's the go-home fucking SummerSlam show. You would think he would be there. So I don't know if any more will be answered next week, or we will just have to wait and see what happens at SummerSlam. So as far as that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match goes, you now add Paul Heyman potentially turning or splitting with Brock Lesnar. You add 2 different guys potentially cashing in a briefcase. You add a number of guys returning or interfering in the match like Dean Ambrose and others. There's a whole lot they can do here. So let's hope that this turns out to be one heck of a storyline twist or swerve or something, and the tension that now exists between Brock and Heyman just adds that much more. So my fingers are crossed that we'll at least get something exciting out of this whole debacle of a main event at SummerSlam. So why don't we all just hope for the best together? The other big news on Monday Night Raw was the main event. Ronda Rousey wrestled for the first time ever on Monday Night Raw. She took on Alicia Fox in the main event. Not a very long match here. We didn't expect that it would be. A lot of stalling. They took a long time to get to this match. They had Alexa Bliss coming out with Alicia Fox. Then they went to commercial. Then after commercial, they went to an in-ring promo before the match even started with Alexa Bliss and Alicia. They were being interviewed by Charlie Caruso, and it took forever for Ronda Rousey to finally come out there. She gets in the ring. She ragdolls Alicia Fox all over the damn ring. Winds up tapping her out in the armbar as Alexa Bliss retreats, and I thought it was a decent build for the SummerSlam match. I mean, it wasn't the greatest segment. It felt like it stalled a lot, and there was at times it felt like it was falling flat. But overall, the crowd, I'm pleasantly surprised with how the crowd reacts to Ronda Rousey. She is not shit on. WWE, it's amazing what they can do when they really put their mind to something, because we were in a situation here where the fans could have viciously rejected Rousey, shitting on her at every chance they got. But instead, the fans actually seem to be into her. I think Ronda Rousey is performing well. She's carrying herself very well. She does not look like somebody who's a 4 or 5 month rookie or whatever she is. She's a big money player coming into the WWE, and she's holding her own in there, and she doesn't look lost, and she doesn't look incompetent, and she doesn't look inexperienced. She looks pretty damn good, and I think a lot of that is because WWE has done a really good job of protecting her. I still think the match with Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam could be up in the air. I don't know if it's an absolute given that Ronda Rousey wins the title. I think you have potential for interference here too. I don't know where Nia Jax has been. You've got Natalya sitting right there as an easy out, a good way to keep the belt on Alexa Bliss. You could have Natalya turn heel on Ronda Rousey. I've been calling that ever since they did the Superstar Shakeup. So I'm not really sure. I'll do a predictions video next week, but I don't know if I'm really going to predict Rousey here. They might want to save that. We've got Evolution on the horizon. They might want to make that event Ronda Rousey's crowning moment or something. So it's possible that they hold off the Rousey victory here. So I guess right now, either way, I don't really care. I don't know what the fans are going to think. I don't know if it's one of those situations like Asuka when she lost at WrestleMania. Everybody thinks she should go back to NXT now. So if Ronda Rousey is to somehow, not win the title in her second try because she fell short with Nia Jax as well, if she faces Alexa Bliss now and falls short again, are the fans going to think that she's ruined and all of that? So I have no idea. Don't really know, don't really care. Right now, I'm relatively impressed with Ronda Rousey, and I don't know how they're going to be able to book this match where Alexa Bliss does not get killed. I mean, there's no way this can be that much of a competitive match. Rousey does not need to be selling and bumping all over that ring for Alexa Bliss. Alexa can have some offense, but she doesn't need much. This needs to be a mismatch. This needs to be Ronda Rousey dominantly tearing her arm off. And the only thing that's going to keep Alexa Bliss champion is if somebody comes in and helps on her behalf. So that could be Nia Jax, that could be Natalya. Hell, it might be Braun Strowman, because that might be the only person capable of prying Ronda Rousey off of Little Biscuit Butt. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But you guys let me know all your thoughts and opinions and what they should do or could do in the comments below. One of the more annoying things on Monday Night Raw, and one of the more annoying things in the past few weeks on Monday Night Raw, is something that's bothering me a lot. And that's the horrible booking of Bobby Lashley. Are they on crack? What's wrong with them? I normally don't sit here on my high horse and act like I know what's good and bad in wrestling booking and what you should do and shouldn't do and the proper way to use somebody and this and that. I hate those know-it-all entitled fans. I don't want to be like that. But this shit is beyond infuriating. Bobby Lashley, it's almost as if they have it out for him, and they're putting him in ridiculous situations week after week. This is a guy that beat your poster boy clean at your last pay-per-view. He has a victory over Roman Reigns. That should tell you that they want to keep this guy in the main event picture, and he could be a big potential opponent for a Brock Lesnar, for a Braun Strowman, and you know he's going to have a rubber match with Roman Reigns somewhere down the line, most likely with a title on the line. So in the meantime, while you're waiting to get on the other side of SummerSlam, why don't you try to continue Lashley rolling in the best way possible? We already know he's got a huge problem with the audience. They don't give a shit. They couldn't care less about the guy. So that's been a problem since he got there. And boy, is WWE doing jack shit to fix that problem. If anything, they're making him worse. And I've had a big problem with the way he's been utilized outside of the ring. In the ring, you can judge him for that. He is what he is. He's a badass. He's a big boy with some MMA background, and he should be a big, respected, tough guy badass, with the life that he's had. But instead, he's coming off like a fucking dumbass. It's like he has no street smarts whatsoever. First, he gets conned into doing that ridiculous obstacle course a few weeks back or months back or whatever that was with Sami Zayn, and that whole thing was dumb because how in the world in a real-life situation would you be dumb enough to let somebody convince you to go through a goddamn obstacle course just to get attacked at the end? If anything, Lashley should have been like, you know what? You go first, Sami Zayn. You go kill yourself on that obstacle course, and then I'll go through and shatter whatever time you had. And you're going to be too damn tired to attack me after anyway. But instead, Lashley, like a fucking lab rat, the scientist says, hey, go run in the maze, and he goes and runs in the maze, and then he gets his ass kicked for it. And I hated that. The sister shit was bad enough that they did with him and Sammy, and now this, I'm like, oh my god, they're making Lashley look like a fool. Now they've got him in this deal with Elias on TV. And everybody loves Elias. This guy's a heel that has the fans eating out of the palm of his hand. Very Rock-like. Rock was like that. He was a bad guy, and the fans just chanted along with him anyway. And so this guy's already kind of over. He's more over as a heel than Lashley is as a babyface. And last week, Elias makes Lashley look like a fool on Raw. And one of the worst, most uncomfortable botches I've ever seen. They're trying to sing together, and Lashley doesn't even know the words to Rockin' Robin, or he forgets the words or something. And it was the worst singing attempt I've ever heard. WWE should know the last thing you really need to do with Bobby Lashley to get him over with the audience, or maybe to display some of his his charisma, the last thing he needs to be doing is singing. And he doesn't need to be singing next to Elias either, who's a pretty damn good singer. So he looked like shit doing that, didn't know the words to the song, then got beat down. Then he comes out last Monday on Raw and interrupts Elias again. Elias is in the ring attempting to do his thing. Lashley comes out, and once again, he's made to look like a fool, although he does make a comeback this time. But Elias has got like his camera crew there because he's filming his documentary or whatever the hell's going on there. Lashley interrupts him and cuts a promo that gets absolutely no reaction whatsoever from the audience. And then Elias pretends to kind of help out the camera crew. Okay, get out of the ring. This isn't a place for you guys. And he's stalling and he's stalling and he's stalling. And Bobby Lashley should know to keep his eyes open. But nope, stupid Bobby Lashley, a guy that spent time in the armed forces, doesn't see this sneak attack coming. And Elias throws a clipboard at him and it hits him in the head, and then he starts attacking him. And I was like, I'm watching this during the live stream and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What are they doing? They're making him look like a chump. Finally, he gets his comeback, winds up beating the hell out of Elias, but it doesn't matter. WWE every week is putting this guy in situations that makes him look worse and worse and making the fans care even less about him. This guy is one notch above Titus Worldwide as far as the reaction he gets from the audience. I would like to do the Pepsi Challenge of Wrestling Pops with Dana Brooke and Bobby Lashley. Have them both come out to the ring and see who the fans react to louder. I bet you it's a fucking tie. This is not a knock on Lashley. I'm not angry with Lashley. I'm angry with WWE. Because you should be able to look at a talent and be able to see their strengths and their weaknesses. And one of Lashley's weaknesses is trying to be in little silly-ass interviews and silly promos. He's really not a good talker at all. And you got Paul Heyman crying on TV in an Oscar-winning performance or Emmy-winning performance on Raw, and then you have the absolute opposite of that in Bobby Lashley. And when you think about it, Bobby Lashley, a guy who cannot cut promos, and that's been exposed now on TV in the past, I don't know how many weeks in a row on Monday Night Raw. Maybe you put Heyman with Lashley. I mean, I think that would be the best thing for Lashley at this point because he's got nothing else to offer. And the funny thing is that once they do the match with Lashley and Elias, I don't know if they're going to announce that for SummerSlam or not. I think we already have about 12 or 13 matches announced, so I don't know if there's room for Lashley and Elias. But if there is, you know Lashley's going to win. I have no doubt that whenever they face in the ring, Lashley will spear and pin Elias. But that doesn't change the fact that the fans don't give a shit about him at all, and they're much more into Elias. And Elias is a better character, and Elias just has a better overall presentation than Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley doesn't connect, and I think he has the potential to connect if WWE would understand what you can accentuate and embellish about Bobby Lashley that will get the fans interested. Because what they're doing now, it's like the writing team writes segments without considering and taking into consideration the talent that's in the segment. You can't just write a promo for anybody. You know, you got to think about who it is, who's delivering it, who's going to be saying the words. And I swear, the way they're booking Lashley, it doesn't seem like any of that matters to them. Or at least it doesn't matter, you know, to a talent like Lashley. But it should. They put him over Roman Reigns. This is not a jobber. So you would think they would want to get as much bang for their buck as possible with Lashley, because I'm sure he's being paid quite handsomely, the fact that he's going to be a main event guy. So wouldn't you want to make the best of him? And I think he's being horrendously underutilized and underappreciated, and I think he could be treated better, and I think WWE could put him into situations that wouldn't make him look so bad. And Bobby Lashley, since he can't talk and can't do anything else, have him stand there with his arms crossed, looking like a badass, sweating bullets, with Paul Heyman by his side, talking about what a badass he is. You know, to me, I'd much rather see them go in that direction than this bullshit that they're doing with Lashley right now. So the whole Lashley presentation and the usage of Lashley right now is driving me crazy. I'm assuming you guys agree with that, but if you don't, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I can't believe I'm going to say what I'm about to say here, but I did not enjoy the Braun Strowman segment this week at all. It's kind of getting a little bit old. I don't want to see Strowman turn into this like caricature of himself. In the old days when he was going crazy and he was just destroying people and murdering Roman Reigns and tearing down Raw sets and tipping over trucks, he was doing that in this monstrous, I'm a very scary individual type of way. Now he's starting to do shit in a more comedic role, and I don't want to see him cross too far over that line. And it was so obvious. I was watching Raw with all of you guys on Monday, And as soon as I saw the Kevin Owens show with Jinder Mahal as his guest, and it was not inside the ring, and it was off from the ring on stage, I was like, well, shit, Braun Strowman's going to come tip it over. I think we all called it. And about halfway through the stupid interview, the whole stage starts moving. Braun Strowman is underneath there, and he just lifts it up and tips all three guys over because Sunil Singh was out there as well. That would then lead to a match between Strowman and Jinder, which Strowman would lose via disqualification, kind of illustrating the point that he can lose that briefcase at SummerSlam if he's disqualified or counted out. And to be honest with you, again, I cannot believe I am saying this, but part of me wants Kevin Owens to win the briefcase. I just think he would be really entertaining. I guess at the end of the day, I don't really care who has the briefcase. I just want somebody to cash it in, either at SummerSlam or the next night on Monday Night Raw. I would love to see Brock drop the belt on Raw, considering he hasn't worked a match on Raw in like 17 years or 16 years or whatever it's been. So if he retains and beats Roman, I would love to see Braun cash in the next night and beat him on Raw for the title, or beat Roman for the title, or beat somebody for the title. Just the briefcase holder winning the belt, I think, would be better than either Lesnar hanging on to it or Roman winning it. So if Braun Strowman retains the briefcase, great, but if Kevin Owens gets the briefcase, even better, because I think he can just swerve everybody. And I've mentioned the alliance with the McMahons before. Stephanie seems to have his back a little bit, and Triple H, we all know, helped him win the Universal title a couple of years ago, right after SummerSlam as well. So that might be a good spot for that to go down. And you guys have to remind me about 2016 when Finn Balor was injured and he forfeited the title. Did they crown the champion that night, or did they do it the following week on Raw? I don't remember, but it was like a fatal four-way, right, when Kevin Owens won the title. I think it would be really interesting and ironic if he did it again the night after SummerSlam by cashing in the briefcase this time and winning the Universal title 2 years to the day from when he won it the first time. So it might be something interesting. But like I said, I don't really care who wins. Right now, the way Kevin Owens seems to be getting the better of Strowman. He beat him in the cage match, and Strowman has lost a couple times on Raw now because of DQs and countouts. Strowman will probably wind up power slamming Owens and pinning him, but if Owens can steal a victory there and snatch that green briefcase, I'm fine with it, although that would completely make the Monster in the Bank t-shirts obsolete. So WWE might not be going in the Kevin Owens direction, but if they did, you're not going to get any complaints from me, and it hurts me to say that because I'm a big Braun Strowman fan. We had a lot of Roman Reigns on Monday Night Raw as well. He opened up the show taking on Baron Corbin. They had a little verbal exchange in the opening segment, and Kurt Angle made a match between the two of them. Pretty decent match. Roman, of course, got the victory there, no surprise. We would then later on see like a sit-down interview with Corey Graves and this big video package on his road to SummerSlam, and then Seth Rollins has to pick a tag team partner to face Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre in a tag team match, and Roman announces that he wants to have Seth Rollins back, and he's like, I got you, even though he's already had a match. So you think you're going to get a Roman video package and two Roman Reigns matches, but then they do a segment where Stephanie calls in and says Roman Reigns cannot compete twice because she doesn't want to jeopardize the main event of SummerSlam. So she says, Roman, you can't be Seth's partner. Seth goes in there in a 2-on-1 handicap match and gets beat. So I don't know what the point of that was, and still no stipulation announced for the Intercontinental title match at SummerSlam between Ziggler and Rollins. There's no banning of Drew McIntyre that I have seen. I don't know why they haven't come up with something like this in storyline. We saw last week Rollins got attacked by the two of them, and then on Raw this week, instead of demanding Kurt Angle make some sort of a stipulation at SummerSlam to protect him, he just wants a tag team match instead. So Seth Rollins' character here needs to start using his head, and next week on Raw, he needs to do something to where he can try to negate the threat of Drew McIntyre. Unless he has somebody on his side, unless somebody has his back at SummerSlam, which could very well happen because they're building up this 2-on-1 thing, and it might be Dean Ambrose. Michael Cole went out of his way on Raw to say that Dean Ambrose would not be the tag team partner. A lot of people thought he was going to show up on Raw. I never did. I did not think that was going to be the place for Ambrose to make his return, but maybe SummerSlam will be, and he can be there to back up Seth Rollins. And I've mentioned the Jim Neidhart King of the Ring 1995 194 scenario a couple of times. I think it would be fun that when Dean Ambrose comes back, he comes back to back up either Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns, seemingly as a babyface, seemingly on the same side of his two Shield brothers, and then he turns. So maybe he comes back, helps Seth Rollins win the Intercontinental title by cutting off Drew McIntyre at the pass, or jumping in and interfering and helping Seth Rollins, win the belt, since he's basically in a 2-on-1 situation, and wind up turning on Seth, starting an Intercontinental title feud between the two of them going into the fall or whatever. But again, it's a feud that we've seen before with Dean Ambrose and Seth, when Dean was a babyface and Seth was a heel, so now it would be reversed, and we'll see where it goes. But that could be a good possibility for SummerSlam, especially since Seth Rollins has been fighting an uphill battle with these two ever since this feud started. So if they're going to bring Ambrose back, SummerSlam is a perfect place to do it. And another guy they could bring back would be Jason Jordan, because he was Seth Rollins' partner, and they did have some funny tension and some teasing going on with the two of them as well. So Jordan, I'm sure, is waiting in the wings as well, and WWE is trying to figure out when to have him burst back onto the scene so he could also show up at SummerSlam and get involved in that match somehow. So I'm kind of hoping right now that Seth wins back the title and then goes on to feud with one of those two guys, but I'll give it some more thought and give my full prediction on that next week. And last couple of notes pertaining to Raw, nothing really that major to talk about. We did see Ruby Riott return. She came back and helped the Riott Squad beat Sasha and Bayley. Looks like we're not going to get any match between Sasha and Bayley at SummerSlam. They're going to hold this thing off. And the more I think about it, we've talked about so many different directions for these two, them having a match or a loser leave the brand and one of them goes to SmackDown. There's also been the talk of the lesbian angle between the two of them. We have discussed every possibility between these two, but another new possibility now is we've heard the rumors of WWE creating a women's tag team title. And if they're going to do that, Sasha and Bayley could be the team that wins those inaugural belts for the first time. I personally think it should go to a team like the Iconics, but if they want to give it to Sasha and Bayley, fine. They're even wearing some color-coordinated outfits now, so maybe this whole inevitable split between the two that's going to lead to the match in the program and the heel turn by either Sasha or Bayley isn't happening anytime soon, and now they're back together, and even when they got beat by the Riott Squad on Raw, Bayley or Sasha was like cradling Bayley in her arms. It was just fucking bizarre, so I don't know what the hell is going on here, but whenever I talk about it, it gives me a headache. And finally, I also want to mention the B Team debuting some new music on Monday Night Raw, some new entrance music, and I liked it. It ends, when they come out to the ramp there in the beginning, it has a chant at the beginning of the song, like B Team, go, 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 or whatever it is. And when they came out there and they did it, I liked it, and I can really see this getting over with the audience because WWE is really big on that. That can really help a talent get over. We've seen chants work for other guys. We have the Yes chant, we've got the Burn It Down with Seth Rollins, we've got the Walk with Elias, and now you have this B Team go, go, go shit. I think eventually in time, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear those fans chanting that along with them every week, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder. So, because of that, I think, yes, a theme song should be the reason why the B Team keeps the tag team titles, at least for a little while. They had a match on Raw with the Revival, and Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy interrupted, and they each replaced one of the tag team partners. I think Bray Wyatt replaced Dash Wilder, and then Matt Hardy replaced Curtis Axel or something, and they kind of fucked up the match, and it looks like they're heading towards some sort of a multi-man deal for the Raw tag team titles at SummerSlam. Nothing has been announced yet, but probably this week on Raw, we're going to get a triple threat announced for SummerSlam for the tag team belts, and hopefully that will be a kickoff show match, because I don't really see any reason to do a title change here, and I want to see the B Team keep the belts for as long as possible and let that theme music get over. And speaking of Matt Hardy, too, there has been some speculation that he's been injured, and there's even been talk about some retirement. He was tweeting out some very cryptic messages a couple of weeks ago. Turns out, as of right now, from what we've read on the dirt sheets and heard from Meltzer and guys like that, I guess Matt Hardy really isn't retiring right now. He probably will be soon in the next couple of years, but at least right now, those tweets had nothing to do with him retiring, and he's going to continue on the Raw brand, at least for right now, and hopefully he stays healthy enough to stay in the ring. But he's getting up there in age, and you can see him kind of wobbling around the ring a little bit, so he's probably in a lot of pain. And if he's got any current injury problems right now, I guess he's rehabbing that on his own. And at least for right now, the retirement rumors about Matt Hardy appear to be false. Let's move on to SmackDown Live, talk a little bit about that show. Not as great of a SmackDown Live as we have seen in the last couple of weeks. Still a pretty good show, and I still think overall the fans preferred SmackDown over Raw this week. SmackDown's won I don't know how many weeks in a row here. If you're going to ask the fans to vote, I think SmackDown has gotten the nod for the past couple of months. Some of the notable things on the show is we had another interaction between Daniel Bryan and The Miz. And Daniel Bryan, it kind of reminds me of Bobby Lashley a little bit on Raw, what they're doing with him on SmackDown. He's getting punked out by The Miz at every turn. They did the thing with the baby where Miz tossed the baby at him and then beat the crap out of Daniel Bryan. And now this week, the Miz is doing a backstage interview, and he does accept Daniel Bryan's challenge for SummerSlam, by the way, so that match is official for the pay-per-view. And you've got Byron Saxton in the ring essentially interviewing Miz on the Big Tron, and that's when Daniel Bryan attacks backstage, attacks Miz, rams him into the wall, starts beating the hell out of him, and then the security guards kind of pull off Daniel Bryan, and Miz gets up and smashes Daniel Bryan in the back with a vase full of flowers. So even though Daniel Bryan attacked, he still got beat up in the end, and the Miz stumbled away. Now, normally, one would assume that in this type of situation, Daniel Bryan is going to absolutely murder the Miz at SummerSlam, but that's not a guarantee because Daniel Bryan, still as of right now, according to the internet sites and stuff, has not signed a new deal with WWE quite yet. So maybe they don't want to put him over here if he's not re-signing. I think that he will, just knowing Daniel Bryan and how ingrained in that company he is. His wife is there and he's on their TV shows and reality shows. To me, it seems like he's got a good gig there and he's got a family to think about, and he should stick around. He could make a great living. He would set the wrestling business on fire if he returned to Ring of Honor, or if he went to New Japan, or just returned to the Indies and worked the circuit there. My God, the amount of tickets he could sell and help a lot of those promotions out. But really, WWE might be the better place for him, especially in his contract negotiations, which the longer they go on, the more I think that that's a good sign that Daniel Bryan is really fighting for some things that he wants. And we know one of those is a lighter schedule, which I have no issue with, because Daniel Bryan, he might be one injury away from having to retire. WWE might not let him get any more concussions. So the less he's working, the less risk you have. So hopefully WWE will not have an issue with the reduced schedule. And I would also hope, and I've mentioned this before, I mentioned this when his contract negotiations first started and we first started talking about it, is that I said Daniel Bryan might not re-sign because he doesn't want to get stuck in a situation like he was in for the past few years where WWE was holding him hostage. So I would hope he would have a type of deal where he could leave if WWE didn't allow him to wrestle anymore. If they said that, they don't want to take the risk, or if he got injured again and they said, okay, no more wrestling for you, they've got to let him out of his contract and let him go do something else. I don't think Daniel Bryan is stupid enough to risk his life by wrestling when he shouldn't be wrestling, considering he's got a family at home and stuff. But if it's something minor and it just gets WWE scared and they're holding him out of the ring for precautionary measures and he knows he can still wrestle like we went through the past couple of years, that's a situation where I would like to see Daniel Bryan out on his own so he could wrestle again and he wouldn't be at the mercy of WWE. So whatever the latest with his contract is, I hope it's going well for him, and I hope he gets everything that he wants, and I hope he's taken care of and protected and paid well and pushed well upon him re-signing. So if that's the case, which I think it will be in time, we should be getting the news soon that he's extended his deal, because it's up in September, I believe. So it's got to be done here relatively soon. And depending on what his status with the company is, unless he's leaving, I think you got to put him over The Miz here at SummerSlam, because The Miz has pretty much owned him so far in the build. And Daniel Bryan's still got some matches we need to see him in. Hopefully he can work with Shinsuke Nakamura, especially if Shinsuke might be going back to New Japan. I would like to see Daniel Bryan and Shinsuke get a chance to work together. And we got Daniel Bryan, facing Samoa Joe or AJ Styles for the title on the horizon. You got all sorts of stuff you you can do. And I think The Miz and Daniel Bryan can revisit their feud again maybe next year, especially if one of them is champion and one of them wins the Royal Rumble. So you can keep that in mind for the future too if you try to look at the big picture and where WWE can go, going into 2019. But Daniel Bryan voiced his concerns with the WWE creative team being able to come up with something awesome for The Miz and Daniel Bryan. He doesn't trust them to come up with a memorable storyline and do it right and book it right. But I'm still hoping Daniel Bryan and The Miz can work out because it's been going on now for 8 years, and it's a long-running feud, and these guys have a lot of history, and I want to see the match and the angles and the segments in between them and the program between them be absolutely as good as possible. So the first match, the SummerSlam match, will be very telling as to how this thing is going to go in the future. We had Charlotte and Becky Lynch teaming up to beat the Iconics in a tag team match. Now, backstage, they had Charlotte and Becky having a conversation, and Becky was trying to say, hey, look, I'm your friend, and I love you and everything, and I'm happy that you got in the match, but I really wanted Carmella to myself. And they're kind of just, it's a lot like what we're seeing with Sasha and Bayley. There's a whole lot of teasing going on here. So if they wind up going into SummerSlam and we don't have some sort of a heel turn here, then I don't know what the hell the point of all this shit is. Even to insert Charlotte into the match, I'm glad Charlotte is back and everything, but she's been off TV for a while. Becky Lynch has had this whole redemption storyline. I don't know what you want to call it, but she's had this thing going on for the past couple of weeks, and you would think the end result here is going to be her beating Carmella at SummerSlam. So when they added Charlotte to this, I was thinking, well, I guess it's just going to be a multi-woman deal, and I pitched the idea of adding Asuka. I was like, they might as well make it a fatal four-way and have all three ladies defeat Carmella in a one-on-one match, a non-title match on SmackDown to gain entry into the match, and then Carmella can figure out a way to retain and beat all three of them. But now it looks like they might be going with a title change here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if, Charlotte, that evilness comes back out in her and that ruthlessness comes out and she cuts the throat of Becky Lynch, turns on her, beats the hell out of her, and winds up tapping out Carmella, winning the belt. And then Becky and Charlotte can be off and running with a program, because I think Charlotte is much better off as a heel. I mean, she's a lot like Edge. She can be a good babyface and a good heel, but I think she's better as a heel. And you got to set her up for something big at Evolution. You know that. So maybe that can be the Becky and Charlotte match for the title. I don't know what the hell they're doing with Asuka. I thought Asuka and Charlotte would work SummerSlam. So it almost seems like WWE just has no idea what to do with Asuka. I didn't mind Asuka losing at WrestleMania. That didn't bother me at all, because I thought in the long run it wasn't going to matter. But WWE, you talk about not following through with shit. Jesus Christ. The whole idea of Asuka losing, she had to lose. So I'm like, cool. I'm glad it was Charlotte. I'm glad it was the most decorated woman they've got on the roster ending that streak. If it's going to be anybody, it probably should be her. I don't automatically subscribe to the brain dead rule that, it should go to a young person to get him over and all that. That's not always the case. And I've said that so many times about other arguments like that, is that sometimes those arguments apply, but sometimes they don't. And it doesn't apply to every single situation. And I felt that Charlotte tapping out Asuka was a great moment for WrestleMania, and I still don't regret it. I'm still perfectly happy with that finish. What I have a problem with is what WWE did after that, because the sky was the limit. You could set up a rematch. You could do the whole thing again at SummerSlam, but instead both women went completely down the shitter. Charlotte has this big epic win, ends this winning streak, and then she loses to Carmella after that, after beating Asuka at WrestleMania. What the fuck's going on there? Carmella beat Charlotte twice, and she beat Asuka twice. What universe am I living in? So I haven't really been happy about anything the women have been doing on SmackDown since WrestleMania. And now we've got this very strange triple threat match at SummerSlam, and all I can guess here is that we got to get some sort of a heel turn by Charlotte. I think it would be stupid for Becky Lynch to turn heel, and I think it would be dumb for Carmella to turn babyface. So I think Charlotte's got to turn here and win the belt and maybe screw over her friend Becky Lynch or something. But again, much like my idea with the Fatal 4-Way, I think it's also possible that maybe Carmella could find a way to escape. Maybe she capitalizes on some miscommunication between Charlotte and Becky, and she escapes with the belt, and then you've got the tension between Becky and Charlotte, and that leads to a heel turn maybe the next Tuesday on SmackDown instead of doing it at SummerSlam. I can see that happening too. So it remains to be seen here what happens there, but between now and Evolution, WWE better get their fucking act together with these women. That's all I'm saying. We had a couple of promos, in-ring promos on SmackDown as well. Randy Orton and AJ Styles both said some words. AJ Styles was basically talking about his match with Samoa Joe. Didn't go into anything significant there. Just talked about his family and how he's always on the road. And, Samoa Joe's trying to make this personal by bringing up AJ's family and things like that. So they're trying to get, the fans as emotionally into this match as possible. But for me, I just want to see the match. The build hasn't been bad, but it really hasn't been that great either. But for me, it's the match. Just the fact, I've said this a couple of times, just the fact that we're seeing this TNA type of match, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, for the WWE title at SummerSlam. Not on Raw, not on some random-ass pay-per-view, at SummerSlam. That's a big deal. When you really look at where these guys have been, where they came from, and, who would have thought in 2005 that AJ and Joe would be co-main eventing SummerSlam? Never would have thought that in a million years. So I'm just excited to see the match. Randy Orton has been absolutely on fire as a heel, and he really has nothing to do with SummerSlam either because they announced Shinsuke Nakamura and Jeff Hardy for the U.S. title. And instead, on SmackDown, he's cutting a promo basically, I guess, explaining why he's a heel now. And the cool thing about Orton is that he's such a great heel that he doesn't really need an explanation. And he's claiming that the wrestlers in the back and the fans don't respect him. No matter how many WrestleManias he's main evented or how many titles he's won or Royal Rumbles he's won, he still gets no respect from anybody. So he's going to take it upon himself to destroy the entire locker room. So I guess that's his motivation now, is murder everybody's face with the RKO. So good luck to you, Randy Orton, on your conquest there. I did see some news. Can't remember where I saw it. Probably just floating around the Twitter. But I believe there is talk of a Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton match at Hell in a Cell, which I think is the next SmackDown pay-per-view after SummerSlam. At least I think it is. It will probably be pretty good and pretty fun, and I would assume that there will be no title on the line, because even though Jeff does have a title match against Nakamura at SummerSlam, and even though Nakamura's contract status is kind of up in the air, I don't think Nakamura is going to drop the belt to Jeff. Speaking of Shinsuke, a really funny segment on SmackDown with him and R-Truth. I laughed my ass off. Nakamura's in the backstage area doing an interview, and he's approached by R-Truth, who challenges him for the United States title at SummerSlam, even though a match has already been announced for the U.S. title between Hardy and Nakamura. And Nakamura says to R-Truth, he goes, "How are you going to do that? How are you going to challenge me for the title?" And R-Truth says, the same way everybody else does, by beating Carmella. And I just laughed. I think the fans got a kick out of that. So R-Truth, I have not seen him on TV. We haven't seen him on TV, and I don't know how long. But it's nice to know that he's still just as batshit nuts as he always is. And he cracks me up. He's just the fucking best. So right after that, Shinsuke says something insulting to him, and it pisses off R-Truth, and he goes, "You know what? Forget it. The match with Carmella is off. I want Nakamura in the ring." So that was fun. Unfortunately, R-Truth got his ass kicked and got beat by Nakamura, but still the overall segment was fun. And it's good to see Ron Killings. How old is he now? He's got to be in his mid-40s, maybe even late 40s at this point. Still showing up on TV from time to time, being entertaining. I'm happy about it. I fucking love the guy. And I thought it was a pretty entertaining segment. I found myself chuckling on SmackDown. Aside from that, all I have written down for SmackDown, what else do we have? Oh yeah, the New Day. They did have the finals of that tag team tournament that will determine the number one contenders to face the Bludgeon Brothers at SummerSlam, and the New Day did win that match, defeating Cesaro and Sheamus, and they'll go on to take on the Bludgeon Brothers at SummerSlam, and the Bludgeon Brothers had a squash match on SmackDown as well. So that is pretty much it as far as Raw and SmackDown goes. Before we get into the other wrestling news, let me just run down this SummerSlam card. These are the matches that I have. Let me give them a quick count. We've got 3, 6, 9, and probably 12. And I think 11 of these are officially announced. And then I've got one more written down that we're probably going to get. So these matches are Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, of course, main eventing the show. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. Ronda Rousey versus Alexa Bliss. Carmella, Charlotte, and Becky in a triple threat. Ziggler versus Rollins. Hardy versus Nakamura. Braun Strowman versus Kevin Owens. Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. Finn Balor taking on Baron Corbin. I didn't talk about that earlier on, but that match was announced on Raw. And I don't know why. We've seen that match like 5 times already on Monday Night Raw. Hopefully, that's a kickoff show match, which is depressing as hell because Finn Balor won the Universal title, in the main event 2 years ago at SummerSlam. And here he's probably going to be in the kickoff show, so that sucks. But still, it's a match that I don't have a whole lot of interest in, so I say throw it on the kickoff. Unless you're going to have the Demon appear, put that shit on the kickoff and give Balor his victory back since he lost to Corbin on Raw a couple weeks ago. Also, like I just mentioned, the Bludgeon Brothers taking on the New Day for the SmackDown tags. We've got a Cruiserweight title match, Drew Gulak challenging Cedric Alexander for the title, and I'm guessing we're going to get a Raw tag team title match as well. That's probably going to be a triple threat that also most likely would be on the kickoff, I would assume. Aside from that, the only other matches that I can think of that they might add would be Elias and Lashley, and maybe something more involving the women. Lana and Rusev have been doing the whole thing with Almas and Zelina, and Aiden English is involved in that, so maybe the four of them can be involved. Maybe it can be a mixed tag or something thrown on the SummerSlam card at the last minute. I really don't know. But right now we're looking at probably a minimum of 12 matches and a maximum of 14, maybe even 15. So it's going to be a long day. Should be fun. Before I get out of here, just want to mention a couple of other things. Some really disappointing news about NXT TakeOver. It is official. It was feared that Aleister Black's groin injury was going to keep him out of TakeOver, and that has been confirmed. They even ran an injury angle after NXT on Wednesday night on the WWE Network, where Aleister Black apparently was attacked in the parking lot by Undisputed. They drove away in a car, and William Regal found Black laying down there on the pavement. So that is the injury angle that they shot to get him out of that match, and that's a shame. Although, even though it's a shame, at least we get Gargano and Ciampa one-on-one, unless they announce a third guy to replace Black. I don't know, but I guess we're going to get another one-on-one match between those two, which is fine. And according to the reports, Aleister Black should be out until October, so that's a couple of months off. And I had mentioned last week that if Matt Riddle eventually comes into the company, I think a Matt Riddle and Aleister Black match would be fun. Speaking of NXT, we also got the debut of Keith Lee this week. He took on a jobber and beat him rather handily, and I'm glad to see him there. I wasn't very familiar with Keith Lee. I've only seen a couple of clips of him here or there on YouTube. I knew of him, knew who he was, but really don't know a whole lot about his career and why he was such a sought-after prospect. But for a big guy, he can move around in the ring. He's very Samoa Joe-like, and that could be a fun future matchup one day on the main roster in WWE. So I wish Keith Lee nothing but the best. The Mae Young Classic is also officially underway. I think they taped the first 4 episodes of those. That's going to air. I don't even know when it's going to air or what the date is, but that'll be coming up on the WWE Network in the next couple of weeks, I would assume. But they've already got, I think, the first round done, and they've released a couple of videos. I think a Hall of Champions or some sort of introduction type of video is floating around there on YouTube and all over social media, so you can check that out. And once the tournament gets underway, I'm going to do my best to take a look at as much of it as possible. So if there's any matches once this thing starts that you guys specifically recommend, because I might not be able to check out the whole thing, let me know on Twitter, tweet it to me or put it in the comments or something. Say, hey, you need to go check out this match, and I will do my best to do that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Cody Rhodes. Of course, they've got their big All-In pay-per-view coming up here in Chicago in less than a month. I believe it's September 1st on that. And I will be watching that live. I'm going to try to make myself available to either do a live stream and watch it on YouTube, or to do a review after the show. One way or the other, I definitely want to do a video and a review and a podcast on this pay-per-view. It's going to be fucking awesome. And when you look at the card and all of the matches that are announced, it's a pretty big deal. They got some pretty big names on there. And for somebody like me that's not that much into independent wrestling anymore, I recognize virtually everybody on this card. So it's a big deal, and I'm so proud of Cody and the Bucks for being able to pull this off, and it's such a huge deal. They got the StarCast convention. I believe it is going to be streamed. I haven't looked into exactly what the details are or how I can watch it, but I do think it's going to be on Fight TV. Is that right? So if I go to that website, I'm sure there is information on how to get that, and I'm looking forward to it, and I really think it's going to be a big success. I mean, a lot of people are talking about it. Anybody who's anybody in wrestling that's not affiliated with WWE is going to be at this event, and it's a really big deal. Now I'm starting to regret not going because I had an opportunity to, but I decided to go to Survivor Series here in LA instead. So I wish those guys nothing but the best. But the reason I wanted to shout out Cody Rhodes is because I saw a tweet from him the other day. Some fan that had purchased a ticket to All In tweeted Cody Rhodes and said, well, unfortunately, even though I bought a ticket to the show, I'm not going to be able to afford to go. And I'm kind of bummed out about it. But I take comfort in knowing that I purchased a ticket and I helped you guys out. And Cody Rhodes responds, and he responds with a very simple tweet, and he just says, what's your budget for going and what's your PayPal? I guess they had a private conversation and Cody Rhodes just PayPal'd the guy some money so he could attend the event. And that's just so awesome. That just goes above and beyond in such a random, nice thing and just a great gesture by Cody Rhodes. You can tell that the guys really appreciate all the support they're getting from the fans. I mean, that's not something that Cody can do for everybody. I'm sure the poor guy got hundreds of tweets after that saying, hey, I can't afford to go either, but just that one little gesture was just really cool to see, and it's something that he didn't have to do, and it just gives Cody a bunch of cool points. I've always liked the guy. I thought he's a pretty good dude, and I'm really happy for his success, and he is a prime example of why certain guys are just better outside of the WWE, or at least need to leave sometimes and go off and do other things before returning, because leaving WWE was the best thing that Cody Rhodes, I believe, ever did. So I'm really rooting for the success of All In, and I hope it's a huge deal. I mean, I hope it outtrends WWE. I know that it won't, but I want WWE to take notice. And I'll tell you, man, one big rabbit they could pull out of their hat is have CM Punk appear on that thing. Could you imagine? He would break the internet. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that the icing on top, the cherry on top of this beautiful event that's being held is going to be CM Punk showing up somewhere at the last minute and just setting the wrestling business on fire and severely pissing off the WWE, I would assume. However, that scenario now seems incredibly unlikely because just as I am putting the finishing touches on this podcast, we have a story breaking here on Thursday afternoon about Colt Cabana and CM Punk. Colt Cabana is apparently suing CM Punk. He is taking him to court. We have heard about a split in the friendship. I think we all had heard that the two of them were no longer friends. Don't really know why, but they had some sort of a falling out. And Colt Cabana, who is going to be competing at All In, apparently is now suing CM Punk. So CM Punk appearing at the show seems unlikely with Colt Cabana there. And I guess from what I'm reading here, all of the news sites, the wrestling news sites have picked up on this. The Chicago Sun-Times initially reported about this news of Colt Cabana taking CM Punk to court. And I guess it's over the legal fees that are owed by Colt Cabana for his part in the Chris Amon lawsuit with WWE. And he was told apparently by CM Punk, and we've heard reports of this as well. I remember hearing this a while back. Apparently CM Punk said that, hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of all the legal fees. It was my mouth. It was my words. It was my story that got you in trouble in the first place. You were just the podcast host. Colt Cabana didn't really have anything to do with it. It was CM Punk that went on his show and ran his mouth the way he did. And according to the reports here, there was in the neighborhood of $500,000 in total legal fees that are owed by the two guys. And I guess originally CM Punk said he would cover everything, and then he kind of went back on that and said that Colt Cabana should pay half. But Colt Cabana has not had the career that CM Punk has had. Colt Cabana doesn't have millions of dollars just laying around. So I don't know. It's hard to really judge this because we don't know the situation. We don't know what's going on personally between CM Punk and Colt Cabana. But on the surface here, as a casual observer, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that CM Punk is a really shitty person. I mean, what the hell's wrong with this guy? This was one of his best friends. They came up in the business together. They were as tight as brothers, and they might have a falling out and there might be some issues with the friendship and all of that, but to stick this guy with $250,000 bill, something that he cannot afford to pay legal fees when Colt Cabana wouldn't even be in this situation had CM Punk not come on his podcast and vented all of his frustrations with WWE. So according to the reports here by the Chicago Sun-Times, CM Punk actually told Colt Cabana that you're on your own for the money. So Colt Cabana is now pissed off and he's taking CM Punk to court, citing text messages and documentation where Punk said that he would pay for everything. And now Colt Cabana is trying to take him to the cleaners. Apparently he's asking for $1 million in punitive and exemplary damages and another $200,000 in general damages. So he's suing CM Punk for $1.2 million here. Now this might just be a way to try to get some sort of a settlement. I'm sure Colt Cabana just does not want to be on the hook for this $250,000 that he owes in legal fees. So maybe by suing CM Punk now, they can reach a settlement where Punk will agree to just pay the legal fees and Colt Cabana won't get any extra money. That would be my guess here. But the whole thing is just really disappointing that these two guys had a falling out. And we've heard this stuff about CM Punk multiple times before. There's a lot of people that say CM Punk is a fucking dick. He can be a great guy. He can be a great friend. He can be funny, charming, intelligent, all that stuff, but he can be an evil son of a bitch. And I've heard in various shoot interviews that CM Punk can come across as very asshole-ish behind the scenes and backstage in WWE. He can be very condescending. He can act like a dick. And that's one of my pet peeves in life. I really don't like anybody talking down to me or talking to me like I'm stupid or walking around with this arrogance about them. I just fucking hate it. It makes me want to punch somebody in the face. And given how CM Punk did in his first 2 UFC fights, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that I or any one of you could kick this guy's ass if he fucked with us. So I don't know what CM Punk's problem is, and I don't know why he constantly gets himself into these situations. There was one shoot interview recently that I saw done in the last couple of years with Hornswoggle, and he had mentioned CM Punk that they used to be like best friends, really close, really tight. And then all of a sudden, CM Punk just didn't want to be his friend anymore because of some stupid misunderstanding regarding a phone number. Hornswoggle asked CM Punk if he could have somebody's number, and then CM Punk thought Hornswoggle was taking advantage of their friendship and shit like that. So I don't know what Punk's problem is. He seems to have a very, very short fuse when it comes to relationships. He's got loyalty issues, and the littlest, tiniest thing can set him off and make him think that you're somehow out to get him or against him or trying to screw him over. He seems like a very, very untrusting type of person, doesn't want to open himself up, doesn't want to trust anybody. I don't know how the hell AJ Lee can tolerate this guy. He must be an absolute nightmare to be married to. And I certainly hope he doesn't talk and treat his wife like he treats some of his friends. And like I said, this is purely speculation. All I'm doing is thinking out loud here about CM Punk, but I'm just taking all of these pieces of information that we have about CM Punk's character and trying to apply them here, and he just does not sound like a good guy. He sounds completely mean and mean-spirited, and I don't know what the hell his problem is. All of the money he made in WWE and his UFC fights, he can't spring and help out his buddy, pay $250,000 to pay off these, legal fees that he cannot afford. I just put myself in CM Punk's shoes. I mean, I just mentioned Cody Rhodes a minute ago, paying for a fan's ticket to All In or paying for a fan's travel to get to All In. You think CM Punk would ever do that for a fan? Fuck no. So the more of these type of stories we hear about CM Punk, the less I like the guy. I just think it's an incredibly douchebag thing to do, to hold Colt Cabana responsible when it was your words that caused the lawsuit to begin with. I know Cabana was an accomplice. I know he didn't stay silent the whole time during the podcast. He was putting his 2 cents in here and there, but really the whole podcast was about CM Punk. And CM Punk didn't even trust that. I remember during the podcast, he kind of took a shot at Chris Jericho, because I think Cabana asked him if people were reaching out. Has anybody talked to you or reached out to you since you've left WWE? And Punk is like, yeah, a couple people did, but I know that when I get a text message from them, they're just trying to take advantage of me and get me on their podcast so they can have the big interview. It sounds to me like the guy thinks the entire world revolves around him. So I think if any of this is true, if CM Punk said that he's going to take care of the legal fees and that he's got Colt Cabana's back and not to worry about it, and then he reneged on that and said, oh, you're on your own, too bad, we're not friends anymore, so go fuck yourself, then yes, I am 100% on Colt Cabana's side here, and I hope that he takes CM Punk to the cleaners, and I hope that he gets $1.2 million from CM Punk. I have a feeling it'll wind up being settled for the amount of the legal fees, and it's a shame that a friendship now seems to be completely destroyed. Sometimes if you have a falling out with somebody, a friend, we've all been there. I've had falling outs with a buddy. I had a buddy that I got in a fist fight with, years ago, and we're like best friends now. So you can always repair relationships, if you have some sort of a falling out. But now when courts are involved, and now you've got dollar figures in the neighborhood of $1.2 million that are being contested here, I think it's safe to say that these two guys will probably never be friends again, and that's a shame. And I wish CM Punk would just learn to trust some people. I don't know what his problem is. I don't know why he flies off the rails all the time and constantly ends relationships with people because he loses love or loses trust in them. And I think the guy is just way too paranoid, and I just don't like these type of stories. And it's something that we've heard time and time again about CM Punk. So I guess we can throw All In out the window in light of this news. And I'm going to be following this news story closely because I'd like to see how this all plays out. CM Punk and Colt Cabana were fighting on the same side in the courtroom. Now they're going back to court to fight against each other. Oh my God, what a mess. So best of luck, Colt Cabana, and whatever winds up happening, I just hope that the trial with WWE's doctor doesn't put you in a lifetime of debt. And I guess that's what this lawsuit against CM Punk is designed to avoid. And finally, before I get out of here, because a lot of you guys are asking me, I have not seen any of the G1 Climax yet. I believe that is still ongoing. And it's a shame. I mean, I take full responsibility for this, that I suck. I have been paying for New Japan World ever since the January show. The Wrestle Kingdom, when Jericho had his first match. I've been paying for New Japan World ever since, and I've probably pulled it up a half a dozen times. So it's right there in front of me, but yet I don't watch it as much as I should, and I know there's a couple more nights of matches to go here, so I'm going to try to check out some of it if I can. But again, if you guys have any sort of specific matches or anything you would like me to take a look at, let me know in the comments or over on Twitter, and I'll do my best to start looking at it as best I can. So that is going to wrap it up for this week. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I've got a really busy weekend at work, so I don't think you're going to hear from me before Monday for the live stream. If something crazy happens or any catastrophic news breaks, I'll get up here with a one-off episode, but most likely this will be the last time you hear from me until Monday Night Raw, when we watch the Go Home Summerslam show together. So come join me this Monday night on YouTube, and we'll suffer through it together. So you guys have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I'll talk to you in just a couple of days. Until then, peace.